My grandma actually used to love coming and watching my shows, which is really great. After a while, it got a little embarrassing, and I figured, okay, Grandma, maybe like stay home. I don't really want you coming and watching my shows anymore. You know, it's a little weird. And she just loved watching the show so much that I think she found a loophole in my little rule, as grandmas do, right? And she died, and now she's always watching my shows. Damn it.
So I'm half Chinese, half Japanese, and American. And it's interesting talking to my Chinese family and also my Japanese family, and we're all Asian American. Like, not everyone finds the same things funny. And that's how it works. Like, humor doesn't necessarily translate from one person to the next, so it's not gonna necessarily translate from one country to the next. That's just how it is. So that's the topic of today's episode. What do Asian international people find funny?
International Asian comedy, it's a lot of slapstick, it's a lot of very obvious humor, whereas in America, we're used to being very self-deprecating.
A lot more sarcasm and raunchiness.
No, I don't know about back in the day. I mean, I think still now in like the comedy channels, if you go now, it's still like a lot of clowny looking dudes who got like funny faces, and they'll have a catchphrase and they'll do a shtick. And I don't think it has the same kind of dynamic as like, you know, here in America or in Western, I would say.
It's so funny. And it's slapstick, it's ridiculous, but like there's something about that ridiculousness that just, translates to all cultures and languages.
So we've all been there. Someone tags you in a ridiculous video from Korea that you don't quite understand but find completely hilarious. Obviously, there's comedy in every part of the world, but how does that humor translate from culture to culture? Have you ever watched a comedy or variety show from, say, the Philippines or Japan and wondered why certain things come across as funny? I got to sit down with veteran stand-up comedians Danny Cho and PK for a quick talk about comedy in parts of Asia. Even though we barely scratched the surface, I still feel like I learned a lot. Hey, so I'm here with PK and Danny Cho, and we're going to talk about comedy and all this great stuff. So how did you guys get started in stand-up?
I started like in the summer of 2000. Did it because of a friend's there. It was in between high school and college. And long story short, it was like an open mic contest with the prize money, and I won first place. And then I met PK in college while I was randomly doing little gigs here and there, and PK kind of pushed me into getting into the Laugh Factory and things like that, and he also convinced me to quit my job.
I would say pretty much collaboration, year 2000 when I was hosting. I would always like try to do little stand-up bits in between, and then that's when, you know, when you get your first genuine laugh, not your friends, but strangers that laugh, that's when I was like, I gotta do this.
I'm like, what's up, Asians in the house? And they're like, Wah!
What? You want to be a comedian? How are you going to make a living?
As somebody growing up, if you don't see a lot of Asian comedians, how do you know that being a comedian is a profession?
Now you guys are working comedians, you tour everywhere, you are, I guess, probably the best acquainted with like international comedy. Like, what have you noticed about that, especially like Asian international comedy versus Asian American comedy?
I think the US has the most freedom in terms of what you can say and like in terms of what's accepted. You know what I'm saying? So like you can say crazy stuff on stage and it's okay, but then I feel like a lot of the Asian countries that really don't have a stand-up culture. Like so like in Asia, the stand-up gigs are like for expats, former military, blah blah blah. So they understand the Western ideals of like the pushing the boundaries, but they're more and more conservative.
I performed in Singapore, Philippines. They actually give you a list of like you can't talk about, government, sex, drugs. So
and like crossing off your whole
like not
not the government. If you're familiar with like international comedy or like Vietnamese or whatnot, any other countries' comedy, what's sort of the difference that you've noticed between like American comedy or Asian American comedy specifically and other comedy?
I feel like sometimes I show my parents like funny videos from Korea because I'm really into K-pop, and like I'm dying like laughing, and my parents are like, I don't get it. Like there's just like a cultural difference, I guess, that they don't understand, so it's difficult.
So I know my parents, other than Dad Fan, what they thought was really funny. Like they watch all those like variety, like Vietnamese showcase shows, and then it's just like guys in drag and like a lot of makeup and just like drag, it's just like a guy flirting with this girl who's clearly in drag, but that's like hilarious. Like that's the funniest thing they've ever seen, and just like really like broad, very dramatic gestures. Like they like that, and then as opposed to like what I find funny is like witty humor and people like talking fast back and forth.
Do you guys like watch a lot of international like comedy things out there?
I'm a Korean variety show expert. I actually watch every day. I watch Korean variety shows.
Every day?
Every day. I don't watch any American shows. Culturally, it works. But then I don't know if you can replicate that type of humor in America because there's some cultural things that are not embedded in American culture. And that's why they try to do Silent Library in America for MTV, and that failed. And they try to do like those like wacky like MXC like jam, you know what I mean, like where they jump through obstacle courses, and that's not going well because
It did alright, a little bit.
But the reason why is because they just picked the activity, but they didn't see the other things that make it really work. Do you know what I'm saying? And until that happens, it won't fly out here.
It's very comical, like the style, like the editing especially. You really see like sound effects, or like they'll put like the little like anger bubble, or they'll put blush on like if someone's embarrassed.
Or even just normal variety shows or music shows, they all have like their own little comedy inserted into that. But American shows are mainly just shows, or strictly comedy shows.
I mean, I don't think anything can come close to American stand-up comedy, like in terms of how real it is, in terms of how dark you want to get. Every country, they have their own nuances.
So that's like physical comedy. I think that translates in all cultures. People getting hurt is always funny.
It's true.
People slipping on a banana peel is always going to be funny. Just those little classical things that we kind of like understand as human beings. I think it's funny.
At the end of the day, I think whatever's funny is funny. Like,
That's a good sentiment.
Like, we all laugh, right? So like, as long as like we can all laugh together, like that's fine.
PK Danny Cho were awesome. I learned so much about the world, about Asians. Oh, Asians. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm Sierra. Check me out online. Let us know what you think in the comments. Also subscribe to ISAtv for more episodes. World peace.
To do a all-female comedy class, it was very liberating to just be like, oh, I don't have to worry about these other expectations that we usually have to worry about. We could just focus on the funny.